Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack, back again to bring you the 7.2.5 first look, first patch notes that we have for Holy Priests, and some of my thoughts on them and where I'd kind of like them to take the spec in the future. So, of course, starting it off, Circle Heal has received a nice chunky buff, and it has reduced mana cost as well. So it goes from 5% of mana to 4% of mana, and then 260% of spell power to 300%. This change basically makes it so that it costs a little bit less than a Prayer of Healing, and does just about as much healing as a Prayer of Healing. Of course, your cooldown is reduced by haste, so I think for me it's like 12-second cooldown instead of the 15 seconds. So you ask yourself, when would I take this ability? Well, you'd actually take it never, because it's still not good enough. And this is kind of in the cycle of this whole expansion where, like, would you take Circle Heal? Well, you spend a little bit less for the healing of a Prayer of Healing, but you do not get the additional synergy that you're getting with any of your Holy Word spells at all. So you're having this ability that is giving you just such a short-term benefit, it's not even worth really pursuing, because the long-term detriment that you're getting as a result is saying, okay, well, now I have my Sanctify on an even longer cooldown. Now I'm having lower Divinity uptime. Now I'm having, lower Power Than Aru uptime, which could be buffing your Prayer of Healing if you're using Prayer of Healing instead of this. The only really benefit is that it's, semi-smart healing where it's healing injured targets rather than Prayer of healing proxy targets. So, and it's instant cast. That's about it. These are not beneficial enough to really justify ever taking this talent. Still sucks in PvE. Rinse repeat, really, honestly. Unfortunately. Divine Star, the cost has been changed from 2.5% to 2% of base mana. It's kind of whatever. Halo's cost has changed from 3.6 to 2.7% of base mana. Also kind of whatever. I mean, for these abilities to really have a good enough effect, I mean, they just have to be hitting everybody all over the place. These changes are more in effect for Disc Priest to save them a little bit of mana. For us, I mean, I still don't see us really taking either Halo or Divine Star, even with the actual big change here, which is the Divinity nerf. Whenever you heal, your healing is increased, or sorry, with the Holy Word spell, your healing is increased by 10%, down from 15%. So, again, this is the second Divinity nerf of the expansion. I guess technically the third if we're looking at like alpha beta processes, but regardless. Again, they're nerfing Divinity because they have no other real good point to nerf us at that wouldn't cause big issues everywhere else. So they're nerfing our passive, which we're always going to be taking anyway, and we're always going to be taking this anyway because even though it has been nerfed, going into tier 20, our set bonuses are so potent, and this is basically why we're being nerfed, is because they're giving us really good set bonuses. So they're saying, because we're giving you good set bonuses, we're going to nerf you in other areas to make sure that you're balanced. And my biggest question for this is why. I mean, I get that you want to be doing you want to be stopping a spec from getting overpowered before it gets to that point. But really, this expansion, Holy has never been overpowered. It's been a very good healer. Don't get me wrong. But it's not, maybe the spec that's lighting up all of Mythic Nighthold and has all of the rank 1s in Mythic Nighthold, which is all one spec, kind of like Druid. And then they're getting like a really, like, whatever nerf to like one ability. So it really makes me scratch my head on this one, where, they are always very, very timid, very, very shy with Holy Priest getting stronger, I think, and then they always kind of rein it back, rein it back, rein it back, Will we survive with this change? Of course we will. Is it stupid? Yeah, I do think so, because of the fact that, they're still not really doing enough to balance all the other healers properly. If they're seeing, oh yeah, this is fine, that the most popular spec for healers is Druid, and then Druid has the highest HPS for every single fight in Mythic Nighthold, and they're getting some pithy nerfs, and they still get pretty good set bonuses going into Tomb of Sargeras. The reason I'm bringing up Druid is, of course, Druid is the closest comparison that everyone always wants to bring up because of Trank, because of, some of the hot base healing sometimes that Holy and Druids kind of have interactions with and stuff like that. So, in many ways, it's very, very silly that they're making this change, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm going to be biased because it's nerfing my spec, but I do think that we never really have gotten to any kind of point, this expansion, where Holy's been so overpowered that it's like, oh my gosh, they're dominating every fight, It does seem kind of weird when you're having a spec dominating all the fights, getting pithy nerfs, and then a spec that, is doing well, it's not a monk, is getting, a huge nerf. It's potentially like 2-3% healing uptime loss. So usually if you have like a 35% uptime on like Divinity for an encounter, So you're taking about 1/3 of that uptime that you're having over the course of the entire fight. So you're saying, okay, I have about a 5% healing buff if it's 15%. You know, if you have only the 10%, you take 1/3 of that, you're having about a 3% buff. So it's, you know, 1.5% healing buff that's lost over the course of this encounter. But keep in mind, with tier 20, which is, again, the whole reason that they're nerfing it. So 2-piece Serenity reduces the cooldown of your Holy Words by an additional 1.5 seconds. So it's basically lighter than Aru. And then 4-piece, your Holy Words have a 40% chance to trigger a 50% chance or 50% reduced cooldown. So you're gonna have higher divinity as a result. But again, the question kind of asks: is this so OP that Holy needs a reduction? You know, so it's still gonna be worth to take divinity. They haven't gotten any closer to actually having us use Divine Star or Halo together, and I think that's kind of a struggle with maybe their reluctance to buff these abilities. I mean, Halo and Divine Star were overpowered when they were first given to us in Mr. Pandaria. Ever since, they have been nerfed so hard into just barely good enough to cast abilities, which is pretty sad because it was really impactful. It was really interesting being able to cast these abilities and have them do a ton of healing for you. Your timing, you know, you're having these big cooldowns that you'd be able to have on 40-second cooldown, 15-second cooldown, stuff like that, where you're saying, okay, I can do a ton of healing as a result of this. And now they're being nerfed, you know, to such an extent that they're barely worth casting. It's just barely good enough. I mean, in Holy Priest case, you know, in many cases it's just not good enough to use, because if you're not hitting every single target with Halo, when everyone is low, stuff like that, all the Echo is going to have a lot of value stuff, you know, very, very, very specific scenarios, you know. You're just better off taking Divinity. You're better off having passive heals. And one of my biggest issues, and maybe this is something in 8.0 that'll get more covered, because we've already seen how it's going where Blizzard's trying to redesign some specs mid-expansion. So, you know, something with 8.0 I would like to be seeing is some kind of revitalization with the Priest healing specs and their talent trees in general. Just mainly the talent trees. The talent trees have gotten, you know, very old, very passive-oriented in many, many situations. I mean, Holy Priest is running almost all passives and probably still will be going into Tomb of Sargeras. And, you know, if nothing changes, you know, 8.0 has to be that kind of point where things are getting more active, more impactful, and hopefully more interesting with our talents. Because at the moment, we set and forget a lot of them for rating, and it doesn't really have much of an impact if we ran no talents or if we ran those talents. You know, you'd still be casting Prayer of Mending on cooldown and things like that, for example, with Benediction or Piety, right? So I think that's one of the biggest struggles that Holy has right now, is that you want to have more interaction with our talents. We want to have more interesting talents and things like that. But in many ways, we just kind of are, I wouldn't say relegated, but we are so focused on Holy Words. It's only Holy Words, everything like that, you know. I'd love to have synergy. I'd love to have something that could instantly reset the cooldown of your Holy Words or something like that, or give them an additional charge, you know. Something to think about for 8.0. I'm sure we'll be covering it more as we're seeing the new expansion come even closer, you know. This is some of my first thoughts and some first impressions on all of that stuff. And hopefully there'll be some more iterations on this. I mean, I'm not 100% sold on Divinity being nerfed as is, because again, I don't think it's going to be something where Holy is going to be really dominant if it wasn't nerfed or anything like that. I think it's still just be in the same position that it would be, especially because Druid's not getting any kind of crazy nerfs, especially because like Paladin, for example, is not getting any kind of crazy nerfs or anything like that. So I guess we'll see. We still have a long way until Tomb of Sargeras comes out. Hope you all enjoy this video. Let me know what you guys think, what you would like to see. Hey, maybe for the future for Holy Priest, you know, if there's something with 8.0, whenever the new expansion is going to come around, because I wouldn't be surprised if they're starting some early development, some early spitball ideas for what they could do with all the specs. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be keeping up to date with all the 7.2.5 changes for Holy and Disc. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe, the works. I'll catch y'all next time.